Hello, everyone. Very warm welcome from Microsoft Zero to Hero community. This is another session. This is Said Dol, and I'm so happy that I'm host another session at your community, Microsoft Zero to Hero. It's really great. It's amazing to have you again on this stage. We are going to have another interesting session, which is our expert going to cover another part of the AI, another part of the AI world, which I'm really looking forward to learn more about that part as well. So before I kick off the session, before I start the session, I would like to share some information with you guys. First of all, you are our hero because you are most important part of this community. So it's really great to have all of you. If you haven't joined to our community yet, I'll share you the link very soon. And this is the community for you. We are working to have this community a very great place for you to be part of a big community, big learning room. So together we can learn, we can share, and we can enjoy about learning about Microsoft Cloud. So let me share my screen here. Amazing. Samuel Gomez is our speaker today. As I've mentioned before, he's going to share his knowledge and experience about a very interesting topic called AI for developers. So if you are a developer, if you are not a developer, don't worry. This is the session for you. You are going to learn a lot of good things around AI and how you can make your application smarter. So as I mentioned, if you haven't joined our learning room yet, aka.ms/join0to-hero. Just type it. You will see a form. Just fill it out. And after 24, you will be part of our community in the Microsoft learning room. Beside that, our YouTube channel or LinkedIn is waiting for you. So we have these sessions live on YouTube and LinkedIn as well. With that said, let's go with the next slide. Of course, you already heard about Microsoft Learn community, one of the biggest learning community around Microsoft Cloud technology. So Microsoft Learn community included a lot of learning rooms, and I'm talking about around 50,000 members in total. So it's a great opportunity for you to join different learning rooms. And of course, one of the biggest one is Microsoft Zero to Hero. So in Microsoft Learn communities, we are going to share about new techs, updates, and also this is a great opportunity for you to share your knowledge or learn from experts. So Microsoft Learn community is the richest place that you can learn and share and keep this knowledge circulation always active. So don't hesitate, join this community, and also you can get some more information about other community Microsoft learning rooms by checking the link aka.ms learning rooms if you want to join to one of the learning rooms. But in Microsoft Zero to Hero, we always cover different category related to the Microsoft Cloud. With that said, as you know, the June and July calendar, the May and June calendar that we released is based on Microsoft Build. So Microsoft Build is ended in the 23rd, but there is always some content always online. I hope you could be able to join in person, but if you couldn't, no problem, still content is there. However, in Microsoft Zero to Hero, we've done a lot of things to be able to provide different topics, different category, different sessions to you. So basically, you have this option to learn from experts around the globe. So if you want to learn more, just check out our YouTube channel. So you can learn more about these sessions that we have had until now. And today is the last session of our May calendar. But with that said, we are going to continue our exclusive MS Build calendar on June as well. So we have a lot of experts ready in our lineup and different topics. So make sure that you have registered for those sessions as well. And we are going to have a lot of fun with different topics and learn a lot. And the last slide, code of conduct. So we expected you to be aware of others, be friendly and patient, be welcoming and respectful, be open all question and viewpoint, be understanding of differences, and also be kind and considerate to others. With that said, I'm going to bring my friend Samuel to the stage. Hello, Samuel. Welcome to Microsoft Zero to Hero stage.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's really great to have you on Microsoft Zero to Hero stage. And plus, you are going to demonstrate one of the interesting topic. I'm really looking forward to learn from you, man.
Yeah, thanks. I hope that everyone that joined finds it interesting and especially useful.
Yeah, of course, of course. Before you kick off the session, what do you think about MS Build? How was it for you? What was the best, or let's say, your favorite category?
I mean, for somebody like me that is excited about AI and that is something that I'm very passionate about, obviously Build was great because it was pretty much just AI advancement. So it was very cool to see some of the demos that they showed that was powered by GPT-4o, for example, where they had the e-commerce interaction basically with the agent with voice and pictures, and the agent being able to recognize the product that the person was holding and whatnot. So all that was very exciting in a lot of the advancements when it comes to Azure AI Search, making it more performant, cheaper, everything about RAG. That was also very, very interesting and obviously important nowadays with a lot of people trying to get into their applications.
Yeah, amazing. That's very true. Okay, I want to hand over the stage to you to start your presentation.
Okay.
Before I forgot that, so we normally have this rule: the best question will receive a 50% voucher of Microsoft Fundamental exams. But since this session we have had very good registrations, just 280 registrations, so I believe one voucher is not really fair, so we are going to giving out 5 vouchers. So 5 best questions will get these vouchers. Don't forget to ask your question. Samuel is here, and also you will be our winner. Why not? So yeah, that's all. Good luck with your session and enjoy, people.
Thank you. I might join with a separate account and just submit a question then. That price sounds amazing. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for being here. And welcome to this presentation titled AI for Developers, Making Your Application Smarter with Azure AI Services. A little bit about me. I am a Microsoft MVP. I am currently working as a client partner at a software consulting company called Jenica. And when I am not doing something technology related, I love to spend time with my wife and my 2 kids, watch movies, playing video games, and anything soccer or football related. Just don't get me started in that. I'll talk about that all day. You can connect with me at the Soccer Dev and X, formerly Twitter. I keep forgetting to change the logo on that. That's my GitHub repo where I'll be uploading the code that you're going to see in a little bit in the demo. And you can also connect with me on LinkedIn. I would love to connect with you, whether it is for networking or if there's any questions that we don't get to address today, I would be more than happy to help you out. So the agenda for this presentation, we're going to take a look at the Azure AI ecosystem real quick. We're going to talk about why you would want to use this Azure AI Services APIs. We're not going to touch base on data privacy and security, which is a big concern with these APIs and just AI services in general. And we're going to have a ton of demos. As a matter of fact, the majority of my presentation is going to be demos. So just a handful of sites in here. And finally, we're going to look at a few sample architectures that you can find online in the Azure website, if that is something that you need. So AI, machine learning, it has been around for a few years, or it has been prominent for a few years with the self-driving cars that we're still working on that. Chatbots that have been doing customer service for a little bit, even before ChatGPT came along. We obviously have Alexa, Google Home, and these other assistants that have some sort of AI behind the scenes. It's been used in healthcare, but the last couple of years obviously there's been an explosion of interest because of ChatGPT and these Gen AI applications that have been around. But it's been around, AI, and some of these services have been around much longer than that. Now, when it comes to Azure, there's a lot of services out there that you can use to add machine learning or AI into your applications. And the way we're going to look at it, we're going to look at the more hands-on offerings on the bottom, and we're going to keep going up to the more business user-oriented options. So at the very bottom, we have Azure Machine Learning. This is the product that you want to use if you are creating something completely custom, completely from scratch, where you have your own data, you want to train your model, and it's a very specific scenario that you are trying to solve. I've actually been using this recently in the last few months because, again, we have a very specific scenario in the project that I'm working on. And this is a product that has, like I said, you can do your training, you can deploy your models into endpoints if you want. So it is, like I said, a little bit more hands-on. You need to have a little bit of knowledge of machine learning in order to use it. Next, we have the Azure APIs, which are some of the ones that we're going to focus on today on this presentation. So these are APIs. They are divided in groups based on the functionality that they cover. So we have vision, speech, language, decision, and of course, we have Azure OpenAI Service now. Next, we have APIs that are for very specific scenarios. So we have the bot service, Azure AI Search, which is a big component on RAG, document intelligence, video indexer, metrics advisor, which is actually being retired, and immersive reader. So these APIs in this third level, they actually use a combination of APIs or services from like the second level. So document intelligence, for example, it uses a combination of vision and language to extract information from documents. So it's a very specific need or requirement that they are trying to solve. And like I said, they use a combination of services. So all these offerings are more geared towards developers and data scientists. So like I said, the Azure Machine Learning, you need to know a little bit about machine learning. You need to work with your data, do all the cleanup and all that kind of stuff. APIs, obviously, as developers, we do that, if not on a daily basis, very, very often. That's one of the things that I think we all had to do at one point or another, is integrate with a third-party API. Next, we have the Power Platform, so Power BI, Power Apps, Copilot Studio, and at the very top, we have the applications like Microsoft 365, Dynamics, and Partner Solutions, which are more geared towards business users. So you don't need to know that many details, I guess, maybe in Copilot Studio, but in general, these are more for business users that are not going to be doing so much coding behind the scenes. So for this presentation, we're actually going to focus only on the highlighted services. So document intelligence and all the different functionality available in the vision, speech, language, and decision groups. I'm not really going to touch on Azure OpenAI today. Unfortunately, if you were looking for that, that is a presentation in and of itself. Same thing with Azure AI Search. There's a lot to cover there, and I wouldn't be doing any justice for those. But these other services, I'm also trying to give them a little love, because obviously Azure OpenAI is it's all the focus is on that. So I want to bring this to your attention, because they cover a very specific need, and it might be something that might be better suited for certain scenarios than a Gen AI application or service. So why would you want to use this AI services APIs? Very, very easy to integrate, as you will see in a little bit. There are SDKs available in different languages: C#, Go, Java, JavaScript, and Python. One thing is that not all the services have all these languages available, so that's one thing to keep in mind. But if there's not an SDK for you, you can still call it as a REST API, as you would call any other API as well. Like I said, a lot of these services have been around for a long time, so they're stable. Microsoft keeps working on them, adding new functionality. They're also sometimes retire some of these services, so that is something to keep in mind. But for the most part, a lot of the functionality that you see today is functionality that has been around for a long time. It's just been improved upon. There's a free tier for multiple services. So if you're just doing a proof of concept, for example, or if you're trying to find out if the API is going to work for you, there's you can just use the free tier for that. Might be able to do an application that doesn't have a big load. So that's a great thing to do, or a great thing to have. And then finally, they are customizable. So you can bring your own data, for example, if you're doing object detection in images and the functionality out of the box is not enough for your particular scenario, you can bring your own images, you can label them, and you can create a custom model for that particular scenario. Now, this is not as hands-on as something that you would do in Azure Machine Learning Studio. So you don't have, in Azure Machine Learning Studio, you can choose the algorithm that you're going to use. There's more levers that you can pull there. Here is you're just using basically the same model behind the scenes, and you're just customizing it a little bit. So a very important distinction that needs to be made there. So data privacy and security, obviously a big issue or a big deal when you're dealing with just APIs in general, but especially with AI and some of the capabilities of these services. So obviously all these, in order to access these APIs, the data is encrypted at rest and in transit. Some of the features or some of the services have limited access. For example, there's a face recognition service that not everyone can access. You actually have to request access for that. You basically have to convince Microsoft that you're going to use it for an application that is not going to affect the privacy of someone. Same thing with speaker recognition, for example, is not something that you can just call out of the box. So they're doing a pretty good job about limiting the things that they just release or give access to. Data storage, another question that comes up a lot is whether the data that is sent is stored anywhere. And there's two ways that you can look at it. There's two paths here. Some APIs do not store your data at all if it's something that returns really quickly. But some of the APIs, if you're dealing with a task that is going to take a relatively large amount of time, if you're doing batch processing of audio, for example, that is something that you're going to have to wait for the response, or you're going to have to come back later to get the response. In that situation, the data, the output is stored temporarily, so you can obviously go back and retrieve it. But if you don't retrieve it, it gets deleted after 24 hours, I believe is the last time I looked at the documentation. Also, big concern when I've talked about these APIs in the past is whether the request or the response is used to train these APIs or is used to train other services like Azure OpenAI or ChatGPT or things like that. And the answer is no. So your request, your response, your information is not going to be used by Microsoft in that way. So something to hopefully calm any concerns about that. And then finally, if you have a scenario that is very specific where either data governance or some other requirement, you're dealing with sensitive data, and you need to run these services on premises, they are available. Some of the services are available as containers where you can just run them in, like I said, in your infrastructure outside of the regular Azure cloud. The requirements for the machines, obviously you need to have certain CPU and memory requirements if you're going to do this, but it's an option. It's a nice to have option if your requirements or if you have limitations about what you can do or how you can implement your solution. So, like I said, I don't have a lot of slides here. I'd rather show you how these APIs work, what you can do with them. So we're going to jump into some demos right now. So we're going to look at creating a resource for these services, look at testing the APIs with some tools called studios. And then we're actually going to look at an application that has examples of vision, speech to text, language, content safety, among other services that are part of these APIs. So I am going to take a quick pause here in case that there's any questions before I jump into my demo. All right. So let me switch my screen real quick here. Okay. So creating a resource is no different than what you would do for any other resource in Azure, really. The one thing to keep in mind, so if you type Azure AI Services, go close. So you will see here that's the it's the first item that comes up. You will see that you also have the option to create some of these services separately, and that's the one thing that I wanted to talk about. So you can either create a key that is going to give you access to multiple services, so vision, language, I think vision, speech, language, I believe you can all access them with the same key and the same endpoint. Or you can create one key for vision, one key for speech, one key for language, if you need that kind of billing a little bit more, in a little bit more detail. But you click on create, you go to Azure AI Services, and pretty standard when creating a resource. So I just choose a resource group, the region, then I'm not gonna create it, but just fill it out so you can see. Price and tier, as of right now, I said that there is a free tier for these services, but because I already have a free tier resource, the only option that I have here is standard. So understand the terms below. Responsible AI notice, which we're gonna touch base in a little bit. Then you click, so let me click that, click next. You can specify, who you want to access that, any system assigned identity. So pretty standard for Azure AI Services. Really, the basics tab is the things that is only a little different in here. But after that, you have a key, you have an endpoint that you can use to test these services. All right. So I already have a resource that I've created for all these demos. So I said that I was going to show you different studios. So Microsoft put together these web applications that allow you to test these APIs. So right now we're Vision Studio, but you can see up here we have the other ones: speech, language, document intelligence, and content safety. So we're going to look at all these. We're going to look at all the different scenarios that they cover, so that you can see what you can do with them. So if you scroll down here, then you can see that it shows you all the things that you can do here. So we're going to look at some of these right now. This video retrieval, is one of those that is more restricted. So that's not something that we're going to be able to see right now. So let's look at thens captions to images. So with this Vision API, you can do, when you analyze an image, you can do caption and thens captions. So caption is just one caption for the entire image, a summary of what the model sees on the image. Dense captions is just different captions for different things that are happening in your image, or that the model is determining that are happening in the image. So you see here that you can upload your own picture, or you can select one that they have by default. And you'll see here that it sees all these things in the image, and it creates a caption for each one of those. So if you're creating tags, or you're adding data that you want to associate with an image that you can use later for searching images. For example, you have a big catalog of images and you want to be able to have some terms or some captions that you want to add to them. This is a great option to do that. And you'll see in a little bit, and when we get into code, how ridiculously easy it is to have this implementation. So you'll see, at least in this solution, it shows you where it found that particular instance. So the white cup is right there. And then you can look at the JSON just if you want to get really deep and see what you would get if you were calling the API as a REST API without the SDK. If you get the SDK, obviously you get some objects that you can manipulate or extract data from. But this is what you would get if you would just call it from as REST. So you'll see this, it has the caption right here. It also gives you a confidence score, which is very important. If you're using these services, you want to make sure that in certain situations, if the confidence score is not over whatever threshold you're comfortable with, that maybe you send that over to a person to review, things like that. And then it gives you the location of where that particular element of the object or of the image is. So that way you can do something like this. So just highlight where that is. If you scroll to the bottom, then you will see that it gives you different information. So if you want to try the SDK, it tells you, it gives you some, it takes you to the quick start, it takes you to GitHub samples. Here is the specification here is telling me which resource I am using. You can create resources from here as well. So instead of going through the Azure portal, you can just come here and create your resource straight from here, obviously. And up here, another thing to call is that I mentioned that some of these, some of the functionality that you will see is available to do in containers. This is an example of a functionality that is not available yet. So if it says Docker container, obviously it means that you can do it as you can run it on premises. If it just says cloud, it means that it is only available in the regular cloud as of right now. You can go to different the documentation, SDK reference, all the documentation that you would need if you want to use that. So we're gonna go back over here real quick. So we took a look at dense captions. I'm gonna skip some of them. We can come back if we have time. I don't want to run out of time looking at all the other services. So we'll look at some of these. So let's look at the object detection real quick. Let's click on this image. And these are all the things that it detected. So detected footwear, a person, a laptop, detected that people are seating, detected 2 people. And you can see here that, for example, it's not really sure that that is a laptop. So that is a relatively low score, even though it will say it identified it successfully. That's what that is. It's a laptop. So that's, again, what that confidence score is very useful once you implement this or you use this in your applications. Again, the tool offers you the same options for most of these. This is also only available in cloud. But let's go back over here. Extract text from images. So let's go with this one real quick. So if you want to do a little bit, if you want to do OCR, basic OCR in your images, you can see here that it extracts all the text that you can see in the picture. Can't zoom out, but if you hover over here, it'll tell you where is that particular word in the image. Again, you have the JSON, and it's really only one call to the API that can get you all this detail that you are seeing here. We're going to look at that in a second, like I said. Common tags. So you have the ability to do captions, but you also have the ability to do tags. So person, clothing, furniture, etc. These are all the tags that the model identified with their corresponding score as well, in case that is something that you need to do. And we'll do the last two, which is if you want to create thumbnails for your images. This smart cropped is something that just was released, I believe, last year. So if I click on an image, it gives you a reduced image or a smaller image. You can change the ratio there depending on how or what you're trying to do with the image. So that's something useful as well if you're trying to do something like this that is more automated. Finally, the phase detection. If that is something that you need to do for whatever reason. Now, this is just face detection. It's not really face recognition. So it's just telling you whether there is a face in the picture or not. It's not really telling you, hey, that is a picture or that's Sam Gomez's face. So that's the other API that I mentioned, that it's more restricted, and you can't just call it out of the box. You'll have to specify that is something that you want to do. I'm going to take a pause here real quick. I see there's a few questions coming through the chat. So let me go up because I see that there is a lot. So Peter asks, is the data that is sent to U.S. hosted data centers for processing from foreign countries accessible in transit to U.S. government agencies? Data rest is one thing, but what about when it is in transit? That I don't know the detail for that question, Peter. It's a really good question. I will have to do a little bit more digging on those details. So, but that's a really good question, and obviously very important concern to have that. So I'll make sure to get back to that. Get back to you on that. About links. How will the API evolve to address the challenge of integrating explainability techniques like line of SHAP into the training process seamlessly, specifically for complex models deployed on Azure machine learning compute clusters? So that is obviously, you don't have any control over the training of these APIs. That is something that it's obscure in this case. So that is something that is just going to be, that Microsoft is going to be doing for you. So that is the good thing, and the bad thing about it is that you don't really have any control about how the model is trained behind the scenes. If you want to have that kind of control, that is something that you have to use Azure Machine Learning Studio for. So in here, you're just calling an API. Whatever model and whatever is happening behind the scenes, you really don't have access to that. You don't really see that, and you have no control over it. Even with the option to customize your models, you're just providing the data and you're labeling it, but you don't really have an option to really deal with that or address that. General combinations for confidence scores. I even see results around 0.8. Does the confidence score increase if you increase the number of training documents, data sets in general? Yeah, so definitely that is usually the case. When you provide more data, you will see a better confidence scores. But the other thing too is some of the things that you can do here. For example, in document intelligence, we're going to see in a little bit, there's different options on how you can train your custom model. So the neural model or the neural training is obviously a little bit more accurate, but it's also more expensive. But when it comes to data, the more data that you can give it and the more variation that you can have in your data, the better confidence scores that you're going to get. Now, out of the box, again, you have no control over that. So if you test what we just saw out of the box and you see that your images or your particular scenario is not performing the way that you were expecting, that's when you go, hey, we actually have to go and bring our own images, bring our own, label our data, and actually do something custom. So I am not going to cover facial recognition in this particular presentation. I actually don't have access to that particular feature. So unfortunately, that's not something that I can cover. But if you connect with me on LinkedIn, that is something that I've actually been wanting to explore to see what it can do. So I would be more than happy to connect on LinkedIn, and we can chat about that offline or after the presentation. And there's something saying here, I cannot see a resource group when I try to create a new resource. Is that through the Azure portal, or is that through the Vision Studio? I don't know. I would need a little bit more details on that, but also if you connect with me on LinkedIn, I would be more than happy to jump on a quick video call and just walk you through how to create your resource. All right. I think that's it for now. So I am going to keep moving so that we have time to explore some of these other services as well. So we're going to move to the Speech Studio. By the way, I don't know if you guys are aware, but there is a Azure AI Studio, which if I click on here, you can see, I believe. So Azure AI Studio, a lot of the functionality that I'm showing you today, it's moving over to that Azure AI Studio. I don't know if this individual portals are going to be retired anytime soon. I actually prefer these more focused studios as of right now. But I just wanted to give you a heads up that might be that is happening right now. So speech capabilities, we're just going to look really quick at text-to-speech and speech-to-text. There's a lot of the things here that you can do with the speech translation, pronunciation assessment. You can create your own speech model. Again, if you have your own audio that you need to configure, or if it is a language that is not covered right now by the API, which could be the case, you can do that as well. You can do batch speech to text if you have a ton of audios, maybe call center recordings, something like that you just need to do in batch. You can do that. But we're just going to look at the more little simpler speech to text. So here you can see that you can choose a different language. There is a ton of languages that are covered right now. So like I said, there's a chance that yours is not covered, but there is, I can't remember the last number of languages. I think it's like 90 or 90 something languages that are covered at the moment. So you can drop an audio file, as you can see here, or I can also test it with my microphone. Sometimes when I do this demo, I forget to stop the microphone, and it just starts capturing everything I say. So you can see here, it was, in this case, very accurate. I can also test it with my microphone. But I think that they change that sometimes, but let's change to puedo probarlo con distintos idiomas también. I don't feel like I had said that with a questioning accent, but it was pretty cool to see that not only did it add those question marks because it thinks that that's what I did, but it also, you'll notice that for those of you, if anyone else speaks Spanish, that it actually adds the things like the accents and other things that are very specific for the language. So these services have gotten much better from back when I first started them. There's also the at one point it identified the language automatically, but they changed the interface. So, but that is also something that you have available. And as you can see here, if it identified the language that I spoke in that particular instance. So really cool. And again, you'll see it in a second, but it's ridiculously easy to add that capability into your application. So going back to speech, you have now text to speech, and I don't think it has the straight up text to speech anymore, but you can do things like custom voice, personal voice, which is obviously a little bit more dangerous if you want to call it. But if you need to do a particular voice, or if it's a scenario where maybe you're trying to give someone that can't talk anymore, but they wanted to use their voice. I think I saw something like that, a build or something, where it was somebody that had a particular illness, and they built a tool that lets that person speak with their actual voice, even though they can't talk anymore. So there's a lot of things on the accessibility front that that is very interesting that you can do with AI as well. So let me see if the upfront text to speech. No, so this is just a voice gallery. Yeah, I think they removed that, but I have it on my application, so we'll see that in a second. I am gonna take another quick pause here, see if there's I see, Hardik, that you try to do that through the Vision Studio, so I don't know what you weren't able to see the resource. But like I said, I'll be more than happy to connect with you offline, and we can walk you. I can walk you through that. Then, as far as what is the minimum amount for the probability score that is acceptable, that is there isn't I guess a set of rules or a specified standard. It's really gonna be what you're comfortable with as you test your application. So if you see, for example, that hey, the 70% confidence score is good enough for a particular flow, for a particular scenario, then that's going to be your confidence score. That is going to come from testing, from seeing how the model performs, but there's really no specific or hard rules that this is the confidence score that you need to use, because you'll see some interesting scenarios in a little bit with the actual application that I created, where, for example, certain dense captions, they have a low confidence score, but they're accurate. And we actually saw that in Vision Studio as well. So that's really up to you and how critical your application is. If you're dealing with something that is very sensitive, if you're dealing with in a financial scenario, something that could potentially affect somebody's future or somebody's situation, then you might want to be a little higher on that confidence score. You might want to be a little more restrictive. So it depends on what you're dealing with, what your scenario is. Let's see. Portal, how Azure AI Service can help in the scaling applications to meet higher demands. Not sure. That's a very broad question, so I don't know if you can add a little bit more clarification about exactly what you mean about higher demands. But I'll come back to that one. How is Azure being used in higher education? So I don't know if it's specific examples where it's being used in higher education. I don't know if you're asking about Azure AI Services in particular, or just Azure in general. But there's obviously, I'm assuming there's a lot of universities out there that are using these services, but I don't know of specific scenarios. I can find out, if we connect, I can give you that answer, but I don't know off the top of my head. In Speech Studio, text-to-speech, when it uses a different language, can you set it to auto-translate the text to a different language as well as the input? Let's see. Speech translation. I actually don't know if choose the target language. I know that you could do auto detect here, but it doesn't look like it lets you do that anymore. So it doesn't look like you can do auto detect. Because I remember that being an option a while ago, but it looks like here, like now, you have to specify which language you're speaking and which language you want to translate to. So let's try this again. You'll see something that is very interesting, though, is that something that has changed in the last few years is that depending on the language that you actually specify, it changes the voice that it uses and it makes it sound the way that it should. So I had that a few months ago, I think, where I was testing translating a recipe, for example, from English to Spanish. And when I specified English as the language that I wanted in the voice, it sounded with the accent of not somebody speaking Spanish. And when I specified the right language, it sounded the way that it was supposed to. Anyway, so speech translation. This is my first time testing this feature. So I captured something extra there, which I don't think I said, but this is a pretty accurate translation of what I said in English into a Spanish. And like I said, so let me see. I don't know if you can hear it or not. I didn't hear anything. So, because this is the first time I test that. But you can, the voice, like I said, it will match whatever language you use if you specified the right one. It'll sound a little bit more natural than if you leave the default. Let's see. Let me go back over here. So use it differently. I can say to auto translate. It doesn't look like you can do anymore. I apologize, I don't speak Portuguese, but I will try to translate that in a second. What are the costs of going to higher confidence score? What's the price I have to pay to go for more confidence? That is going to vary depending on the service that you use. And we can go into details of the pricing in a little bit. We can try to come back to that if there's time. But so it depends if you're using the custom vision or the custom document intelligence. It's usually going to be a price per call that you do to the API. But even then, it's not something outrageous that is completely going to break the bank if you do through a custom. But we can connect offline because, like I said, it depends on the very specific service that you're going to use or that you're going to customize. All right. I am going to keep moving to the next service because I see we have 10 minutes or so. And we're going to look at the Language Studio now. So you have the capability to extract information. You can classify text, or you can summarize text as well. So if you're extracting information, very important scenario that you might have in your particular organization, personal information. If that is something that you need to scrub personal information in an automated fashion, you can use a service like this to do that. So again, you have certain data that you can use by default, or you can write your own text or try an input from your system as well. So let's click on this one. We'll click on run. And then here you will see that it identified all these entities. It was able to identify this particular passport number. And if you look at the JSON, you will see here that it redacts the information that it identified as sensitive. So you will see here, it says passport number, but then what you get back from the API is just an asterisk. So if you only have, if you're doing this in an automated fashion, like I said, you can just run it through the API, take the output and just store it, and not really have to do any additional scrubbing. But you also get all the details of what it was able to identify in case that you need to store it somewhere else or you need to do something else with that particular piece of information. So let's go back to Language Studio. We have named entities we kind of saw in that other example. So let's see this one, legal NDA, and identifies different entities here. So August 17th is identified as a date, and you also have categories and subcategories. So this is a date time. This particular entity is a date. It's not time. So you can get that little bit of level in case that you need to add that to your processing as well. So if that is something that you need to do, very, very, very easy to do. Then let's see, classified text, analyze sentiment. That's the other one that I want to show real quick. So if you're in a situation, for example, this is the good thing to grab here. So product review, if you need to determine if the reviews for your particular product, if you want to process them in an automated fashion and figure out, if they're positive or negative, maybe you want to take an extra action. If it is a negative review, maybe you want to reach out to the customer to see if there's something that you can do to change their mind. So you can see here that it gives you an overall score of the text that you sent. So it's saying here that is mostly positive, so 73% positive, 3% neutral, and 25% negative. So there's some negative in there, but it also gives you a sentence by sentence score as well, so that you can see here, I bought a size S and it fit perfectly. That is obviously classified or identified as very positive. But here you'll see here, I found the zipper a little bit difficult to get up and down due to the side rushing. So that is overwhelmingly negative. And this is something that they just added to this. So the opinion is that the assessment or the opinion that the model has is that the zipper is a problem, which is obviously the case. But you can do that kind of processing. For example, if your review mentions the quality of the product itself, maybe you send it to one department. If the review mentions the customer service, you can send it to a different department, and you can do like a little bit or more automated processing in that particular scenario. So Language Studio, I think that's the only one, and then it allows you to detect language as well. So mixed languages, let's try that one just for fun. So this one has a combination of English, Spanish, and French. So it detected Spanish with a 99% confidence. So that is not, it didn't identify the other ones, which is surprising. So not the best demo for that particular feature. All right, so I am gonna move on to I might actually cut these studios short. I might actually move to the application that you can see the code. But before I do that, let me look at this too. So I see that says not just in terms of money, but also looking for costs in terms of performance and response time, penalties, and any other. So as far as performance and all that, that is not, there shouldn't be any difference, or at least as far as I've seen with the out of the box versus the custom one. There's no difference in the performance. Really, the difference is going to come in the cost, because there is a difference there. But as far as the other question or the other concern, you should be good to go with the custom. You shouldn't see any significant loss in performance. Is it possible to train the speech studio with a non-listed language? It is possible. It obviously it's a lot more work than to do that training, but it is something that you can do. Which services do you think are most worthwhile to look at? I think the ones that I would say the vision and the language ones are probably the ones that you want to look the most. It really is going to be depending on the scenario and what your interests are. Obviously, the speech one is really cool to see that it can take text to speech and speech to text. But I would say vision, language, and speech, the ones that I just sent you or that I just showed you, are probably going to be the most important. Document intelligence also, when it comes to business flows, is going to be very important if you want to automate extracting information from documents. The only one that I don't think is very common or you have to look at that much is the content safety one. I think it's a little bit more niche, or it's a very specific scenario you're trying to address here. I will try to get to the rest of the questions. I'm actually going to move on to the application real quick here. So this is an application, a web application that I have that goes that shows or has samples of all these different services that I just showed. Some of them that I haven't showed yet, but I'll see if I have time to do that before the session ends. You'll see here, vision, speech, language, decision. They're based on groups, but we'll see document intelligence, and I have a couple combo scenarios that I threw in there as well. The other thing that I have is that I added very simple, let's see, analyze image. So I have a very simple logic with the speech service where I take what I said on the microphone, and I run it through a conversational language understanding service, and then based on the intent that I get back, I navigate on the application. So let's look at that real quick. So what that looks like, I believe is in here. So this is the code. This is the only code that I need to get that speech service started. So I just call one method on the speech service, recognize from mic, and it did the capturing of the voice and transforming that into text. Ridiculously simple to do and to implement. Now, the way that I'm creating all these clients, I am creating them in the program.cs. So there's, I'm just using the builder.services at Azure clients. Most of these are going to require just the endpoint that you get when you create your resource, and one of the keys that are generated when you create that resource as well. Some of them, like the speech one, I believe is a speech one that is a little different. I think that one asks for where'd it go? I think that one asks for a region as well. I don't remember where I put it. But as far as calling the API and as far as the functionality itself, that is all you need in order to start listening for what the person is saying on the microphone. And then I have a get intent functionality in here that is it's calling that language understanding or conversation language understanding and trying to figure out why I want. So let's go right here. I'm going to choose an image real quick. So here I'm running the image analysis option of the Vision API. And I am extracting this is the caption. So a man holding a trophy, which is accurate. Then we have the tags. And you'll see that have a person, man, human face, all with relatively high confidence. As you scroll down, I order them by confidence. Tennis, that is definitely not tennis. I think it's just because it's white, or the uniform is white, that it says that it's tennis. Then we have the objects that it identified in the picture. So there's 4 people that it identified in the picture. You can sort of see, so these are based on the coordinates, these are the rectangles where it sort of saw a person. Now, when you do the image analysis, we'll look at it in a little bit. Actually, I'll talk about that in the code. And then we have the dense captions that we also saw in Vision Studio, where it says a man holding a trophy. There was one here. I can't remember if it was dense caption. A gold medal with a star, where it says here, it doesn't have a high confidence that that's what it is, but it does look like a star, and it's obviously a medal. So that's where it comes at. The confidence score sometimes might not be as high, but the predictions or the output that you're showing is accurate. So just something to keep in mind there as you deal with these APIs. So let's look at the code behind the scenes for that. So let me go over here, image service. So this is the analyze image method. This is a method that I have. I get a stream of the image, and then I specify all the features that I want to identify when I call the analysis method in here. So here I'm saying, get me all the captions, dense captions, objects, read, which is it's gonna extract any text in the image, tags, people, and a smart crop. So here I just told them basically to get me everything that you can identify in your scenario. If you want to just be very specific about what you want to identify, obviously, for example, if you just want to do OCR, you would only need the read feature for the image. So one thing to know that I was going to mention when I looked at we were looking at the application is you have the ability to identify objects, and when you do that, it can identify people, but you also have the option to identify people. And the difference between those two is that the people option is going to be a lot more sensitive, and it's going to identify a lot more people, because it's specifically for that particular scenario. So that's one call out that I noticed when I tested these. For example, I remember when I tested that, and I don't show it here, but the people option showed like 20 people or a little bit more, matching what you could see, even though it's a little blurry. So one thing to mention there, that is something that you might have to deal with. You can specify some other options. So gender neutral caption, if that's something that you're concerned about, a language, and the ratios for the smart crops if you're doing something with that. But again, the only thing that you want to do in your application, if you want to get that functionality there, one line of code, apart from specifying those features, image analysis client analyze async, you pass information of the image, you pass the features that you want to identify in those options, then that's all you need. That single call will get you back all that information based on those features, everything that is able to identify. Super simple, and depending on your scenario, very, very powerful and very, very easy to implement. This method is something that I just wrote to only extract certain things from the results, but you will get all of this if it is included in the particular image that you are working with. So let me show you real quick one that I haven't shown yet. So this is the Content Safety API. This is a new one. I think it was released last year, if I recall correctly. And as the name implies, it is to make sure that if you have an application that is in an educational context, for example, or if it's if it is specific to kids, for example, you don't want them to see certain content. You want to restrict what is available there, what the images are able to upload. So I am gonna, let's see. I think that's a quote. I don't know if anyone recognizes that. It's a line from a certain movie. But so when you call this API, what you can do is you can do text or image. I don't know if I'll have time to do the image, but it tells you in 4 different categories if your content, what is the level that it identifies within these 4 categories. And then based on that and based on the rules and how lenient you want to be with this kind of content, you can decide, hey, we're going to block that content. We're not going to show it on our website or on our application, or that's okay. When we can still show it. This content safety is the same API or the same functionality that you will see if you're working with Azure OpenAI, for example. You'll see, and there's a section where you can do the content safety, and you can control what the response is, the kind of content that you want to generate. That is the same functionality that is backed here. You can also create blocked term lists. So if you want something very specific that you want to block, so for example, even though it is not, the severity is not a hateful content or it's not a violent content, I have it on a special list that I created. In this content, for example, it would be blocked if I had some sort of information there that some sort of information very specific that I want to block. So for that, let me look at that over here real quick. It's the content safety. We have 2 different, the content safety client and the block list client. But again, it's a few lines of code, and it gives you that capability to add that into your application. It's super easy, ridiculously easy to use these applications. So analyze text or analyze image, depending on what you want to do, and you're up and running. You don't really have to do anything else. Just do document intelligence real quick. And I'll go back to the studio. I don't know, Sayed, how much more time we have. I know we're getting close to the hour. But so this is if you want to extract information from either images, or you can do PDFs or other kind of documents. This API is what you can use. So here is a form that has, it's for fake healthcare information. This is actually built, or this analysis is done with a custom model that I built for document intelligence. But there's others that are out of the box. So you'll see here, given names, first name, second name. I call the API, and I'm able to extract that information out of that particular image. So let's look at that one real quick. Again, very simple, kind of the same pattern where we pass a stream for the image. You can pass URLs for some of these APIs as well. So for example, if you have this in a blob storage or some other URL, you could pass a URL and do the analysis from there if you want. So here I'm saying analyze document async. I'm specifying the model that I'm going to use to do this analysis. And then I'm saying, okay, I want you to wait until it's completed. This is an example of those services that if your document is large enough, then you might do in an async fashion where you call the API and maybe you check in a little bit, or you put a message in a queue and then you come back when it's done. But that's an example of that. The advantage of using a custom model is that you can do whatever name you gave to that field when you did the training, then you just have a dictionary of fields and you can access it with the same name. You can get that information out there. So let's go back to Document Intelligence Studio real quick, just so that you can see what you can do, because this is a service that it's getting a lot of attention recently, because a lot of the functionality to build to do the chunking of documents, for example, if you want to do RAG with Azure OpenAI or some other LLM, Document Intelligence Studio is a service that is being used a lot, because you can extract that information, you can extract paragraphs and other details from your documents. So in fact, there was a session in Build about document extraction that I would recommend if you're dealing with that particular scenario, that talks about a company that used Document Intelligence Studio for the step of extracting information and building the chunks to feed to an Azure AI search index. So as always, there are functionality out of the box. So there is read, which just extracts the text of your particular document. It is a little bit more sensitive than the OCR that we saw in the Vision service. So this is more this going to be more sensitive. So if you're doing documents, you probably want to use this one. Layout, so it gives you the text, but it also gives you any tables that your document might have, check boxes, things like that. I don't know what it's asking me for that, because I was logged in already, but let's see that real quick here. And you know what I realized? I didn't do my prayer to the demo gods. I actually have a prayer in my slide, and since I didn't do that in this presentation, that's why it's acting up. All right. I guess it doesn't want to demo right now. But I want to keep going because we're almost at time. But there's also pre-built models. So there's a lot of document formats that are very common, even across different countries across the world. So invoices, for example, receipts, identity documents, health insurance cards. Those are all formats that are relatively similar or have the same amount of information. So, for example, you're trying to extract information from payments that your vendors have to do, or you have to make payments based on invoices that are submitted by contractors or subcontractors. You can process that automatically using this service. You can extract information and store it in a database. You can extract that information and send it over to a different system, for example, maybe your accounting system. So that's the kind of thing that you can do with this API. And like I said, it covers different documents out of the box, some tax forms if that's something that you need to do. As you can see here, they're doing a lot of work with adding new models out of the box, very specific. So marriage certificates is something that up until a couple months when I last looked at the studio wasn't available. Credit cards, contracts, business cards, if that's something you want to do. But then you have custom models. So if your particular document, like in the example that I showed on the application, it has a very specific format, you can build your own extraction model. And you can also build a classification model. So if you have a bunch of different documents, you have a mix of invoices and receipts and maybe contracts, for example, you can run it through a classification model first, and then you can do the extraction based on whatever type of document you have in that particular scenario. So we're almost at time. I want to make sure that I cover some of the questions. So I'm going to go back over here. That's my prayer to the demo gods that I didn't use, and that's probably why Document Intelligence Studio didn't want to work. But I do have a couple sample architectures that I want to go through to give you some ideas, or in case that this is a problem that you're dealing with. For example, for image classification, images can be uploaded to blob storage, a trigger that will call an Azure function that calls the Vision API, extracts all the information, dumps it into Cosmos DB, and then you can make it available to a web or mobile application. So you can use that for a fashion website or insurance claims if you need to identify whether it was a house that was damaged or a car or a commercial building. That is something you might be able to do with the Vision API. Analyzing call center data. So if you store the audio from the calls, if you dump it into blob storage, you can do a speech to text with that API. You can do batch it. The output can get stored in blob storage or Cosmos DB, for example. And then you can use AI language to remove personal information, sensitive information. And then you can use OpenAI service if you want to give access to a natural language interface, for example. And then from there, you can just do a report, a web app, or send it to a CRM or any other flow, any other application that you have. Document processing. So what we just saw, if you have attachments that are coming through email or dumped on FTP servers, you can dump it in blob storage. If you have a trigger and a function that calls document intelligence, it extracts the info, sends it to Cosmos DB, or you can have a backend application, same thing. They upload an image, goes to Cosmos DB, and then you have a backend application that maybe adds some more information in there or does chunking, and then you can end up with Azure AI Search, or you can connect with other applications. There's a few more examples that I had that I didn't get to cover, but I will be uploading that into my GitHub repo later today. I am going to go back to see there's a bunch of questions in there. So let me see how far. Are there any courses or certifications that are available for these kind of services? There are. So Microsoft Learn. There's a lot of courses in there that walk you through how to use this, but there's also I can't remember what the name is. Skills, I believe it's called, but it's actually a scenario where they tell you this is what you have to implement, and they tell you the services that you want to use, and then you have a little bit more practical approach to that instead of just following a set of steps. Again, if you connect with me, I'll send you the links to those courses or the ones that I found more useful. But there's definitely a ton of resources out there that Microsoft has made available for us. Business scenarios that have complex intake request questions for support or service requests. How could this be used to suggest a support service offering to the requester and reduce the questions needed? Are we support? So that might be something where you might be better off with something like Azure OpenAI, or you could do the CLU, the conversational language understanding. There's also another service that I didn't go through, or a functionality of question answering that might be suited for that particular flow. Peter, connect with me and we can talk about it a little bit more detail, because I would definitely like to understand the specifics for that. But those are the two that would come up, either the question answering service, language understanding, or just go with the Gen AI application. Do these kind of parental controls work real time? Can I block certain kind of content from a live conversation? Yeah, because like I said, this is used on on the Azure OpenAI. So for example, if you were having a conversation back and forth between with a chatbot, for example, or something like that, you could do something like that. You would have to call the API for everything. So you might be better off again with Azure OpenAI or something like that in that scenario. Is there any workshop on what we saw today? Yes, kind of related to the question that was asked earlier. There are resources out there that I'll share. If you guys connect with me, I can send you everything that I have and what I think would be more useful for that. Share these architecture diagrams if they're not proprietary or protected. Yes, I can share the link as well. This is from the Azure site. Let me see if I have it somewhere here. If I can share I'll try to find it real quick. For free host. Yeah, so there's more practical labs out there for some of these APIs. So like I said, I'll share with you guys those resources. Would the language studio have a better performance than the usage of an LLM with a library like TypeChat, like the sentiment example? That I don't know. We would have to compare the particular scenario to compare the performance. LinkedIn account. So let me go back over here. So those are all my socials. Like I said, Twitter, or X, GitHub repo, and LinkedIn. Because I would love to connect with you guys and continue these conversations. And thank you, everyone. I think that is all I have for today. I hope you guys found it useful.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Sam. It was really great. Yeah, we have Hamid in the stage too. So Hamid, could you be able to join us?
That was
Yeah, it
amazing.
was really great. Yeah. What do you think, Hamid?
I really enjoyed it. I couldn't move. Just listening to this session. And yeah, thank you, Sam. It was great information and good uh, experience that is, I'm sure, useful for everyone. And
Yeah.
especially at the end, I remember there were some questions that you mentioned, the resource that they can use from Microsoft Learn. This is exactly the place. If you need anything, just Microsoft Learn. This is the richest place ever. You can find anything there.
Yeah, and also one more things, we have a plan to start, training sessions and also workshops. So maybe if Sam is okay, so maybe we can invite him for some kind of workshop around specific services. Why not? We are always open to experts to be on our stage always.
Let me know when. If there's interest for that, I'd be more than happy to do that.
Yeah, it's Microsoft Learn, right? Sharing and
Yeah,
learning together.
yeah.
Amazing.
Perfect.
Um, this is the, I think, hardest part for you, Samuel, because if you remember, I mentioned we are going to select 5 best questions. So this is your responsibility. You need to find 5 most best or perfect questions that we can give vouchers out.
Oh man, it is a hard one. There were a lot of them, so
Yes.
definitely. Let me stop sharing my screen so you don't see all that. I think Peter's question on whether the data, what's the transit look like for the data. I think that was great. I've never heard that question before, so super interesting and definitely gives me some homework on that. So that one is one.
Is it
Uh,
Peter Byrne? I hope
Peter
I
Barn, yes.
Peter Byrne. Okay.
Uh, then apologize, but Thembeka Machuno. That is something very interesting as well. Again, question that I've never had in the past. Uh, let's see. That's two correct. Let's see. Scrolling here. And I apologize. There's a couple, like I said, I don't speak Portuguese, so I saw that there's a couple of them that I didn't really see. I think the question from Mahendra Pingali also on, what is the cost in terms, whether there was a cost of performance, but also money when you go to a custom solution. That was a really good question as well. Three. The question from Bruno Capellati, very interesting. I don't know the question, the answer at the top of my head. So I like those questions that give me homework, strangely enough. But that I really like that one. And we got one more.
Yes.
Let's see. Four. I saw one more. Where is it? There were a couple that I think Gordy's question, Gordy Harkins' question as well was interesting on what the confidence scores. And I know a couple of people asked something similar, so I apologize if I pick one or not the other. But the questions about confidence scores, I think there's very interesting because there's, like I said, there's really no guideline on what the confidence score should be, because it's always going to depend on how sensitive your application is and how lenient you want to be with that.
Okay, perfect. So we have 5 winners. We will contact you. We will share the vouchers with you and hope we can see that you pass the exam and share it in your social medias and you make us happy. Okay, great.
Mention us and also Sam, so we can celebrate together.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Perfect. Thank you so much, Samuel, again. Thank you, everyone, that you joined this session. It was really amazing. If you want to watch this session again, it's available on our YouTube channel and also LinkedIn. So, yeah, that's all. And once again, make sure that you have registered for our June calendar. We have a very good, very amazing lineup for our sessions. So we continue this MS Build exclusive calendar for another month. And yeah, stay tuned. We have a lot of things on table.
Perfect. Thank you all.
Yeah. Have a good one. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.